Hi everyone, welcome. Are you ready to take the PRENDRE challenge? This lesson is related to our last lesson in which we covered the verb prendre in the present tense. You can find that lesson on my channel homepage if you haven't already seen it. So, how well did you learn the verb prendre? Take the challenge. So remember first of all that prendre means to take in a general sense. It also means to have when referring to food or drink. So here's the infinitive, prendre, and in our last lesson we learned the different forms of the verb prendre in the present tense. Je prends, tu prends, il prend, nous prenons, vous prenez, ils prennent, or elles prennent. So here's the challenge. This is the type of exercise we usually do in a classroom environment. Usually it's written. So what I'm asking you to do here is make a complete sentence of the information that you see here. So we have the subject, je, we have the infinitive, prendre, and we have une bière, a beer. So what you're wanting to do is make a statement in French that means I have a beer or I'm having a beer. And remember, conjugate the verb prendre in the present tense. So I'll give you a second to think about that. You may want to pause the video and write down your answer. So the question here is, how do you say I have a beer or I'm having a beer? And the answer is je prends une bière. Je prends une bière. And remember, the context is very important. You're most likely to say this sentence in the context of a restaurant where you're sitting down after the waiter or waitress asks you the question, what will you have? In French, qu'est-ce que vous prenez? You're most likely, if you want to say, I'll have a beer, you would say, je prends une bière. Je prends une bière. And remember, if you're actually taking a French course, capitalization, spelling, punctuation is all important. So be sure you have the accent mark, capitalization, correct spelling of prends for je prends. Okay, so let's go on to our next one. So the idea you want to express here is he has a beer or he's having a beer. I'll give you a second to think about it, or maybe pause the video, write it down. And the answer is he's having a beer, he has a beer. And remember, this can also mean he'll have a beer, as in you're ordering for someone. So the answer is il prend une bière. Il prend une bière. Il prend une bière. On to the next item. Remember that prendre in general means to take. So in this example, we're talking about taking the bus. So with the information we have here, we want to say she takes the bus or she is taking the bus. Think about it, write it down, and then check the answer. So here's the answer. How do you say she's taking the bus or she takes the bus? Elle prend le bus. Elle prend le bus. Elle prend le bus. With this one, we want to say you take the bus or you're taking the bus. The informal you, tu. So the answer is tu prends le bus. Tu prends le bus. Tu prends le bus. Remember the spelling, the S on the form of prends. Tu prends. Punctuation, capitalization. So for this one, we are going back to prendre to mean have. So in a restaurant situation, you might ask someone, are you having the chicken? So how would you say that in French? We have vous and prendre le poulet. So the answer would be vous prenez le poulet. Vous prenez le poulet. Vous prenez le poulet. So note the form of prendre for vous. Vous prenez. Remember, it's an irregular verb, so you just have to know the form. Capitalization, punctuation. And something of note, there is always in standard French in writing, in European French, there's a space before the question mark. Vous prenez le poulet. So this is not a mistake, it's intentional. That's the way questions are written in standard French, European French. In Canadian French, there is no space. Okay, so here's our last item. So if you're in a restaurant, someone will might ask you the question, what are you having? You're looking at the menu, this is the situation. So the question with qu'est-ce que, subject vous, and the verb prendre, what would it be? In other words, how do you say, what are you having? So the answer is qu'est-ce que vous prenez? Qu'est-ce que vous prenez? Qu'est-ce que vous prenez? What are you having? Okay, well that's it for this video. So if you've got all those answers right, then you have mastered the verb prendre in the present tense. If not, you might want to study it more and play that part of the video over and keep doing it until you get everything 100% correct. And that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.